It is 7 o'clock, so welcome to the Wine Brothers in Oregon. My name's Chef Christopher Zarnecki. I'm the chef and owner of the Joel Palmer House Restaurant, and I'm here with my brother Stefan, the owner and head driver, curator, connoisseur of Black Tie Tours, one of Oregon's best wine tour companies. And in the event of this zombie apocalypse that we find ourselves in, we decided that, hey, we still love to eat, we still love to drink wine. What do you say we do it remotely? So this is video number 2. Last week we tasted a 2011 Roots. Today we're going to be tasting a Dukes Family Vineyard, Alyssa, from 2008.
Yeah, I know. It's got a nice little bit of age on it. Aged Pinot. There's not a whole lot better than that. Mm-hmm. As far as this vineyard and this winemaker and this team, I love them. Have you been out to Dukes before, Chris?
I have. I've been out there a couple times. They still live on the estate. Their son Pat, I believe, is still in college, but he does a lot of work for them too. He's an Army vet like myself, and Jackie. They're total sweethearts up there. So it's awesome. It's great that they make awesome wine too.
Oh yeah, the wine is delicious, and if you get out there for a tasting, it's jaw dropping. When you enter kind of the vineyard, you're kind of there, and the property. There's kind of vines on each side, but it's not until you sort of drop down into their bowl and see their beautiful tasting room that it's breathtaking. And then they will sometimes, I don't know if they're still doing it, I can check with Jackie, take you on an ATV or take you in like a gator type thing and drive you around the vineyard. And there's dogs. People love dogs, and the wine is killer. So definitely worth checking out. So
yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but Pat Senior, because it's Jackie and Pat Dukes are the owners. I think Pat, wasn't he an architect? Did he design their tasting room, etc.?
I'm going to defer to you on that one. Maybe
Kelly knows the answer to that.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, the winemaker, is going to be joining us here in 3 minutes. And so, no, I had been there before, and I've known the Dukes for a long time. I didn't know that you were taking tours there.
Yeah, it's a small little place, so I try not to bother them too much. Bring them with people that have ears to hear and taste buds to taste the good stuff, because I try and value people's time. What are we drinking today, Chris? Show us.
The 08 Alyssa.
Did you say that already?
I said that already. You've had too much of our product here.
Well done. I'm already.
That's not possible. I
already had some bubbles earlier, so forgive me.
That's the sitting on the porch part that we were talking about.
I was literally on my porch just like half hour ago.
Well, yeah, I texted you an hour ago. I was like, all right, well, I'm ready. Let's do a pregame. And someone's like, nope, I'm on my porch. I'm chilling.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful right now.
I know.
So 08 as a vintage. Great vintage. Everybody talks about 08 being the perfect Goldilocks type vintage. Yep. How do you see this wine kind of falling? Does it fall into that for you, Chris?
It does. And, it's nice tasting 08s 10 years down the road. When 08s were first released, of course, everybody loved them. They were gorgeous. It was hard to mess up fruit from 2008 in Oregon. But, time can be cruel, right? Especially Oregon Pinot, which is really sensitive. This one I'd say has held up fantastically, though. It's starting to show, it's got a little bit of that bottle bouquet, a little of that dustiness that people like in their older wines, but the fruit is still really robust. It's got a little bit of acid left. I would say it could still age longer, and I'm willing to debate anybody who says that Oregon Pinot doesn't age. This one's still got tons of fruit. It's been open for 3 hours and still showing really well. Oregon Pinot, the old ones, they can deteriorate really fast after they've been opened. But this is definitely not in that category. This is a gorgeous food wine. And I mean, Mary, my wife, she guessed the AVA like that, blind.
Yep. It's rocking. It's, out there in the old Amity, little minerality. Again, like you said, that kind of dustiness with the age. And I think the word here is balance. It really is kind of I might even argue it's in a sweet spot. Maybe give it a little bit longer if you want.
Maybe, yeah, but it doesn't need it.
Love it. I love it where it is right now. So this is
saying, if it's gotten buried in your cellar and you forgot about it, or it's hidden behind other bottles, don't worry. It'll be good for a few more years. You're fine.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's it's drinking great right now. I feel good about it. So let's we're gonna wait for Kelly. Kelly's gonna be coming on in just a few minutes here. Kelly Kidneigh is she's, to say she's been around is probably not quite so flattering way to put it, but she is an experienced winemaker in the Valley. She is making wines, of course, for Dukes. She also has her own label of Mad Violets, and I think she might have some other projects as well. But I'm gonna let her in now.
And if you are interested in learning some more about them, go to joelpalmerhouse.com, www.joelpalmerhouse.com. We're selling a lot of wines from our cellar right now to get us through the whole, pandemic thing. We have 3 bottles of Dukes wines left on our list. We've got the 07, 1 bottle of the 08. We had 2, and 1 bottle of the 2010. So, hey, Kelly, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Nice to meet you, actually. Have you known Stefan for a while?
Yeah, I think so. I think I first came to know of him when Violet, my stepdaughter, was in middle school, and he was one of her teachers. English, right? Is that what it was?
8th grade English, advanced.
Yeah.
You gotta be a little crazy to teach middle school.
Oh my gosh, I would think to teach any school you got to be a little crazy, actually.
No, she's amazing. Beautiful, amazing artist, great kid. Loved having her. So
yeah, she really is fantastic. I love her, and she's actually home now for the pandemic and for the summer, and it's just so awesome to have her. She's a really fantastic human being. I feel really blessed to have her in my life.
Well, now, so tell us a little bit about kind of what brought you to winemaking.
I was living in Venice, California, and I was waiting tables in Santa Monica. I was actually acting, so I was waiting tables. And I was working at a really high-end restaurant in Santa Monica called Michael's, and it's actually been there for, oh my gosh, it must be like 40 years now. And the sommelier there was really passionate about wine, really knowledgeable. And it was one of those places where we had a staff meeting. We had a lineup every night where the chef would bring out the specials, and the somm would open wines to go with the food. And he would talk to us about where it was from, where it was made, the varietals, all of those things. And he would say, now go and sell this. And we would. And it was really so eye-opening for me at that time. And it really turned me on and got me excited. And I was kind of reaching the end of my tether with respect to the acting, because it was just, I've never been very good at networking and marketing myself. I'm very artistic, but I kind of like to keep my head down and do my work and make my art, and that's what brings me joy. And unfortunately with acting, you really got to put it out there. And I was never good at that. I was never good at going to parties and networking and shaking hands and meeting the people that I needed to meet. And so I was really searching for the next artistic endeavor, the next thing that would feed me like acting always had, but didn't come at the same price as acting did. So I'm working at this restaurant, and he takes us on this field trip up into the Santa Barbara region. And it was standing in Brian Babcock's vineyard that I said to myself, I want to make wine. And at that time, he had been pulling a lot of corks. This was back in '98. And he had been pulling a lot of corks from Oregon wines, which was, of course, much younger then. It was a really young industry. And the wines were fantastic. And I'd never been to Oregon, but I'd seen all these beautiful pictures of Oregon. And so I just very flippantly said to him one day, I want to go to Oregon and make wine. And he said, okay, I'll make some phone calls. And he got me 2
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great to have people behind you.
It
right?
was amazing. So he got me 2 interviews, one with Chehalem and one with Willie Kenzie. So I bought a ticket. I flew to Portland and drove to these interviews. And Willie Kenzie offered me a harvest intern position. They said, we can guarantee you work for 2 months, but beyond that, there are just no promises. And
when was that?
What year? Fine. So I went home.
What year was that?
98.
98, okay.
Yeah. So September 1st of 1998, I moved to Newburgh and started working harvest at Willie Kenzie. And fortunately for me, Di Crisp had just started as their vineyard manager at the time. And after harvest was done, I had made it known to my superiors that I really wanted to stay at Willie Kenzie if at all possible. And they found me a position in the vineyard, and I got to work with Di for about 10 months. And then he took the position at Temperance Hill. And so when he told me that he was leaving, I knew that my education was going to end. And I had learned so much. At the point I was driving tractor, and I worked shoulder to shoulder with these amazing Latino workers. And I mean, it was so amazing. It was a fantastic education, but I knew that with Di leaving, I wasn't going to get that wealth of knowledge anymore. And so I told him that I asked him if he knew of anybody who might be hiring to get me back into the cellar. And the next day he came to work and he said, David Lett's looking for help. Would you be interested in interviewing with him? And I said, sure. And so then I went and worked with David Lett for almost 2 years. And that was another just amazing education.
All in the cellar, right? All in the cellar?
All in the cellar. Yeah.
Get both sides.
You're learning through osmosis, basically, right?
Exactly. Really from the ground up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. I am all about learning under experts instead of going to school for it. I mean, if you're a scholar, you're an academic, hey, more power to you. I am not one of those people. I learned everything I know from my parents, and you got to learn hands-on and get dirty too, it sounds like.
Exactly. And I've always learned better by doing.
Mm-hmm.
I did. So after Irie, I got a position at Tory Moore, which at that time was just down the street. It was at the end of the block, which is where Remy now is, her winery now is. So I worked at Tory Moore for about a year, and right after harvest, they laid me off. And so at that point, I kind of took inventory of myself and where I'd been and where I wanted to go. And I realized that it would be good timing to go to school. So I did go to school. I went to Oregon State. And while I was there, I was working for Barney Watson, who had Kidneigh Vineyard right outside of Corvallis. And I was also working in the wine lab at Oregon State. And then my junior year, I went to Burgundy to work harvest because for me, it was all part of the plan. It was all part of getting that well-rounded education so that I would be fully prepared when the time came for me to be the winemaker.
I hear they've got some wine in Burgundy. Is that right?
A little bit, just a little bit, yeah.
The great incubator of Oregon winemakers, and yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was considering school, I had a number of people, including Bryce Bagnall, suggest that I go to UC Davis.
Sure.
And that just didn't fit for me because, number one, I had just left Disneyland and I didn't want to go back to Disneyland. And number two, I wanted to make wine in Oregon. So it only made sense that I should learn in Oregon.
Well, what made you fall in love with Oregon? Because you were a fine dining server in California. You came to Oregon. You worked in the vineyard. You were a cellar assistant. Then you went to school. But what is it about Oregon that made you say, I'm not going anywhere. This is home now?
I've always had really good intuition. And like I said, at that point, I'd been in California for 10 years. I spent 4 years in San Francisco doing lots of theater, and it was amazing and fantastic. And then I spent 6 years in Los Angeles struggling as an actor. And so I really wanted out. And I also just knew that if I stayed in California, if I tried to break into the wine industry in California, I'd have a much harder time because it was already so well respected. And, you know, it was there, it was strong, and it was going strong. And I just knew that there was probably a lot of nepotism. And also, you know, the truth is it's a boys club. It just is. The wine industry, it's changing slowly. There are more and more women coming into the industry, but especially back in '98, it was much more of a boys club. And I also knew that the Oregon industry was so young that I stood a much better chance of getting in. And again, the wines that I were trying were stunning. They were just beautiful. So it kind of all made sense.
So and after Burgundy, what was your first like assistant winemaker gig? Or
it was at Lemelson, which was a dream job for me. That is where I wanted to work. It's interesting when you're in college, and I was an older than average college student, but you know, about your junior year, they start telling you, all right, you need to think about where you want to land. And you should have your top 3 jobs that you want. And Lemelson was my number 1 job. And the timing just turned out to be perfect. I graduated in 2005, and he was looking for, he was actually looking for an enologist, and which was the degree that I had. He already had an assistant winemaker, and his winemaker had recently left. And so Eric decided he would be the winemaker for the year. And, you know, it was another really fantastic experience for me. He hired this fascinating winemaker from New Zealand whose name is C.P. Lim. And he's Chinese, but he'd grown up in New Zealand, and he was blind. And so, and he had been blind, I think, from a very young age. He caught a disease and lost his sight. And so walking through the vineyard with him and touching the fruit and tasting the fruit, and he would talk to me about what he was looking for in the texture of the seeds and the skins, and it just was, it was so fascinating. And then he taught me to taste stems for whole cluster. You know, we would just
tasting the stems.
Tasting the stems. So literally, we would pull the grapes off of the stem and chew on the stem. And if it tasted like a fine Cabernet, then those stems were ripe, and we were good to go with whole cluster. But you
learn something new every day. I've not heard of that before.
Oh, it's how I decide which blocks are going to be whole cluster and which I'm going to pass on, because it's almost immediate, the bitterness. And so, you know, it was just really fascinating to work shoulder to shoulder with someone who didn't have the sense of sight, and therefore everything else was heightened in him. And I just, you know, again, it was just a brilliant opportunity for me to learn, and I just soaked it up like a sponge.
Wow.
No, that's wild.
Fantastic. And Eric's a guy too, so I love Molson.
He's hysterical. He is quite a character. Yeah. So after that harvest, he realized that he wasn't up to the task of being the winemaker, and he already had an assistant winemaker. So he let me go. I became redundant, as they say. And it was an amicable party.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, what do they say? One door opens, another one, or one door closes, another one opens.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you start making wine for Jackie and Pat at Dukes?
Well, while I was at Lemelson, one of the things that C.P. Lim got Eric to do was to pop the heads off of, I think we popped the heads off of like 24 brand new French oak barrels, and we destemmed into these barrels and we fermented in the barrels. And that became my pet project. And just the fermentation kinetics from those barrels was beautiful. They never got too warm. We were dropping like 2 to 4 bricks a day, and the aromatics were stunning. And then the wines that went into barrel as well were just beautiful, and they were so complete from very early on. So my husband, Sterling Fox, he has been farming for the Dukes from the beginning since 2005. And at that point, they were living in Arizona, and they were coming to visit. And Sterling said, hey, the Dukes are going to be in town. Can I bring them to Lemelson? Can we do some barrel tasting? And, I'd like to introduce you. And would that be okay? And I said, sure. So they came and I tasted them through some wines. And then I took them over to these barrel ferments. And I said, this is exciting. We did this and I just think it's so fascinating and you should try this. And these wines weren't even through malolactic at that point. So they were really young and raw. And Pat was just blown away by the way these wines tasted. And he said, if I give you a ton of fruit next year, or this was in 2006, this year, can you do this for me? And I said, sure. So 2006, the Nipple Hill was born. I made 2 barrels for him.
I was really hoping somebody would say the words Nipple Hill during this conversation today. Could you explain to anybody watching that what exactly Nipple Hill is?
Well, Nipple Hill was Jackie's name. She came up with that. And so their property it kind of surrounds a cinder cone. And so if you see it from the road, I think it's Old Amity Highway. I think that's the road that's called, or Southeast Amity Road. It looks like the hill. It looks like a nipple. It comes to this perfect little point. And so Jackie always wanted to call it Nipple Hill. Pat wasn't as excited by the name, but he let her run with it because he was convinced that the TTB would not let it pass. But she very cleverly, the design of the label has a topo map on it.
A topographical map.
Yes.
And if you're looking at the topographical map of Nipple Hill.
And I think that the TTB saw that and they thought, oh, well, it's Nipple Hill in Amity. So it passed. And so
well, sneaking things past the government. Oh, yeah.
It's awesome. And it's so funny because it's our, top tier bottling. It's always these very small lot barrel fermentations that we do. So, it's the precious and it's our Nipple Hill. So,
so you guys do how many different Pinots? 3? Just to get
we have 5 blends that we do. We have the Alyssa, which comes from the older part of the vineyard that was planted, I should know this, I think it was planted in 95. And then, and it's pretty, that was planted when Pat and Jackie bought the property. That was already there. So it's a wider spacing. And then Sterling planted the upper part of the vineyard in 2000. And from that fruit, we make what we call the Charlotte blend. And then we have Bella, which is the best barrels, our favorite barrels of 115 and 777. So it's another small bottling. So it's a little bit from the younger planting and then a little bit from the older planting. And then we have the Nipple Hill, which is the barrel ferments. And then the Jacqueline's Reserve, which is just our best barrels.
Now, I don't know if you heard or saw in the email, but we're tasting the 2008 Alyssa right now.
Awesome.
Did you manage to raid the cellar and get some to try also?
No, I didn't. Like I said, we're in remodeling, so my stash is like buried someplace else.
Here, tilt your laptop screen. I'll get you some right there. That's how technology works, right? Well, Stefan and I are loving it right now. We were talking about the 08 vintage as a whole. We were talking about aged Pinot. What have you had it most recently? What are your thoughts about it? Or maybe just your thoughts about 08 and aged Oregon Pinot in general?
I have to say that, 2008 was a warm year. Mm-hmm. It was one of the gimmies that we get on occasion, although lately we've been getting more and more of those gimmies. And I have to say, I am thrilled with how the 2008 is aging because, it being a warmer year, there's a good chance that the fruit could easily have been cooked out, sure. But I think that the alcohol, if I recall, I do think it's 14. I don't remember exactly. So, it's a little higher than I like, but
Paul says 13.5 alcohol.
Well, then it must be 13.5. I must have picked it right on time. But I think that is exactly why the 2008 is holding up so well, because it does have a pretty great alcohol, especially for a warmer vintage.
What are some of the other older Oregon Pinots that you've liked?
Well, I'm still really excited about the 10s. I think that in general, the 2010 is a stunning vintage. And I think whenever I see it in the world, out in the wild, I try to grab it, because I just think it's really special vintage. And
there's not that much left. I mean, people drank it. People didn't get to make enough of it.
Right.
Those fucking birds. And they're still rocking.
Really down. Yeah, I kind of refer to 2010 as the never summer. I don't think that we broke 85 more than 6 times in 2010, and every other day was. Did
you say the never summer?
Wet and cold. The never summer. I mean, it truly felt like we never got summer in 2010. Yeah. And there were definitely days when I thought the fruit's not going to ripen. We're not going to make wine this year. There's not going to be any wine in 2010. And then the next day it would be a beautiful day, and I think it was going to be the best vintage ever. I mean, it was such an emotional roller coaster. And then the fruit that came in was stunning, and there was so little of it. It was like.
That's right. That was the year, Stefan. Last time when we were interviewing Chris last week, we were talking about shooting the starlings at the vineyard. Yeah. I did go down and see Jackie, and we shot some birds. Well, we shot at birds.
Oh, you're at Dukes too.
We shot at birds, a few times.
Yeah, you got shoot at the clouds.
We scared them away for a half hour or so.
Yeah, exactly. Kelly, here's the big question. If you weren't a winemaker in Oregon right now, what would you be doing? Besides acting.
Well, yeah, no, that ship has passed. What would I be doing? I honestly don't know. I mean, if I had figured out another way to make a living making art, I would be doing that, whatever that media is. When I was living in Venice, one of the ways that I kind of saved my sanity from just the madness of living in Los Angeles and, being a struggling actor, I did a lot of assemblage. So I would find found objects and glue them onto other found objects and call it art. So I would probably be doing something like that and trying to sell it. I just think that
so you'd still be an artist, just of a different medium.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think so.
Well, we really appreciate your art, honestly.
Thank you.
Yes. We've had Dukes at the restaurant for a while, and it's always a pleasant surprise. And last week, Steph and I were talking about wanting to do these videos specifically with smaller producers, that you can't find outside the state or hard to find outside the state.
Right.
And this is definitely one of those shining stars of exactly that. So I wanted to say nice to meet you for one thing, but also thank you for joining us today and making such fantastic wines.
Oh, thank you so much for thinking of me. It's an honor, and it's a pleasure. This has been fun. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad you like the wine. I love what I do, and I love when it comes through in the glass.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it does.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Kelly. I think we're gonna say goodbye, and we'll see you next time. Keep doing what you're doing. Be safe out there.
You too.
Right. See you next time, Kelly.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Well, if I learn something new every time we do one of these, I will consider this a win.
Chewing the stems?
Yeah. I mean, I know about, making whole cluster wines, but I did not know that like actually chewing down, biting on the stems is part of that process.
I'm doing it this year. I'm gonna go around in the vineyards and just drive in there and just start chewing on some stems and see if I
why
can
aren't you
kick out.
tasting the fruit? Oh, he knows something we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's fun. That's fun. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in today. We appreciate you dropping by. And again, we're going to be doing this every Friday. We're planning on 7:00. This is
Tell them about the link.
Chris.
Tell them about the link down below.
Yep. So there's going to be a link in the comments here as soon as we're done, and it's going to be if you want to be a VIP, if you want to be a Wine Brothers VIP, it gives you bonuses, discounts, insider extras. Check out that link. And also, if you want to buy this wine, the 2008 Alyssa from Dukes, you can find that on the Joel Palmer House website. along with other amazing wines, of course. Go if you're an Oregon Pinot fan, just go play, go look. Every time I go, there's something new, there's something fun. Go check it out. Chris, anything else to add?
I think that's it. Stay healthy. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands, 6 feet, social distancing. Mwah, mwah. Love you all, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.